Don't you just love that 8 o'clock bell and boom, all the prints going up and all the different stocks, all the 15-minute algos kicking in? We're going to cover that price action. We got a little earnings event after the close today. Nvidia expected move, not that big. We'll break it down fundamentally, technically, and sentimentally, I guess. Other earnings reports, some retail earnings to report. We got some ratings changes. Laura Chico, she's going to join us covering biotechs over at Wedbush. And they've been perking up, but we got to cover the biggest news to hit the world in a long time. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are engaged. It's pre-market prep on a Wednesday.
The volatility right now is really incredible.
Wow, look at that consolidation on the upper right chart.
You know what we've seen this earnings season? Some of these expected moves get even more violent. This is why I have switched my strategy 10 years ago. And if you're chasing, you're in trouble.
All right, getting things started in the green. Strong close yesterday. Follow through up 3.5 handles, 64.86, nearing that all-time high. The buck, it's just up again, down again. Well, up again today, 43 cents, 98.55. TLT, man, it seems that does it get out of the 86 handle here? We're down 31 cents, 86.44. USO steady at 74.21. Gold and silver, GLD in the red, 86 cents, 311.22. Silver, SLV back under 35, down 12 cents, 34.90. And Bitcoin, are we putting a little short-term bottom in here? Well, we'll see. Futures are up $235 at 111,465. Filling in once again for Triple D is Money Mitch. And Money Mitch, did you, when they you got the Taylor Swift news and Travis Kelce, did you try and buy some Signet Jewelers?
No, but you guys just didn't find out. It wasn't Kelce. Money Mitch is marrying the Swift. We're getting Swifty with it, baby. Going on tour. It's the era.
Can't sing.
I can't do that, man. I couldn't do that. I don't even know how Kelce deals with all that drama. But hey, to each his own. But Signet Jewelers higher in a high inflation environment. It seems like it just keeps on going, guys.
It's not even a ring from Signet Jewelers, but anyway, let's get the macro out of the way here and lingering with the Fed. Bottom line is Trump wants her out. Seems to think he has a pretty good premise. Both parties agreed, the Fed and Trump, to let it be decided by the court. But Mitch, what's the whole bottom line with this stuff? I mean, where are we going with this?
Yeah, I mean, this is just a back and forth kind of battle, right? And I mean, Trump's been on the witch hunt for a while here. He's been trying to find one way, right? And what's his way? It's cut rates. That's what he wants, right? No matter what. Well, first he went after Jerome. He said, I couldn't do that really quickly. And remember, he was even thinking about firing Jerome a little bit back, right? But of course, he adjusted there and said, hold on, let's look at the board. Is there anywhere I could target? Oh, mortgages? Okay, perfect. Let's go target that. So that's his idea here. But he is saying that he's going to abide by the courts. So we'll find out what the courts have to say here. But of course, hinting that what he wants, and we all know what he wants, is Fed majority here to push for steeper rate cuts. So that's the mentality here. It's can we cut. And one thing that I heard, and this was on the radio, so I'm not going to act like it was me that was a smart guy, but could we be potentially hearing Jerome's replacement pretty soon here? You know, because he might be able to announce at least the candidate that he's looking at.
It's a year away. So before, I hate to go back to this Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift thing, and I don't want you to look, but she was wearing a Ralph Lauren dress. Okay.
Oh.
Have you, and this is before, have you seen that stock lately? Where do you think that's at? Ralph Lauren.
I'm not sure, but it's been like, it seems like it's like closing always. It's like we go back to the old trends. So to me, Ralph Lauren was an old trend. Like in the early 90s,
Yeah.
people were rocking that, right? And so it looks like we're going back to it. I have no idea what the chart
It's
is.
up near all-time highs.
What?
It's over 300. Yeah, the all-time. Yeah, it made a double top on the monthly.
Well, hey, let's just ask the chat this. Anybody in the chat have anything Ralph Lauren? Let me know in the chat. I know I don't have a single piece of clothing from them, but hey, who knows?
Well,
Maybe
it
the
doesn't
chat
have to be
does.
the chat. I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. In college, I had a couple of them. I actually had like a pink and a blue one. Used to flip
Ooh,
the
the
shirt up
polo,
like
the
this
polo.
and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah. All right. We're bored, people, Mitch here.
we're getting preppy with it, guys. All right, we'll move out of Ralph Lauren. But yeah, there's definitely some earnings that we'll be talking up. But let's transition out of that. Let's go to, of course, the knife that everyone wanted to catch. Let's hear if they want to catch it now, right?
After hours action, DOJ probe widens. And I don't know if Brent wants to hop in with any more details on this, but they hit it and they bought the dip again. It got down to 294.20. They're just expanding beyond the original allegations. Of course, UNH said, hey, we're ready, bring it on. So there was a quick dip, but what happens in this market? People bought the dip. And we got a low at 294.20. Little consolidation here. I think for me, technically, you still have the Warren Gap, and the 200-day moving or the 50-day moving average comes in at 288.25. So, if you didn't chase off the Warren news, and they got how high did it get? They got up to 316.40. You're waiting for a pullback. Well, here's perhaps an opportunity in UNH to buy the dip. They already did $6 off the after hours low.
So the more gist of the news was that when we first heard about this Department of Justice probe, it was just going to be for the company's Medicare Advantage stuff. And now the report that we heard, I believe it was from Wall Street Journal last night, showed that the Department of Justice is going to be looking at more than just Medicare. They're going to be expanding outside of Medicare. And, I don't know. I don't know what I think about this one. It's something that we've been watching for a while. Mitch, you were kind of like saying like, okay, is this an indication on other healthcare providers? Are we going to start seeing this Department of Justice probe expand to other healthcare providers? And I think it's a good question to ask.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, this comes down towards more practices, right? And usually they all follow very similar code, right? If you guys know this space, it's a really code focused space, right? And it's all about regulatory, and there's always the concern for fraud in this space in the first place, right? Because I'm sure you guys have all heard of the tales, right, with insurances and that kind of scam mentality. So I'm thinking that this spreads to other names where they start to really look in. And if one is doing something bad, who knows? Maybe a couple of them are doing things the wrong way. And with this being said, it just doesn't seem like this is an interesting or a sexy area where investors want to be right now. A favorite of mine, ELV, for a while there was a favorite. It's no longer a favorite. This thing has quickly but surely had a 50% haircut. So it's not just Humana that's going down here. And I haven't heard of one single probe in ELV, but it's still going down like that. That tells me something.
I think I disagree with you here, Mitch. I think that if we were going to hear about the Department of Justice looking into other companies, I think we would have already heard about it. And here's also a thought. Maybe a regulator like the Department of Justice uses these moments to subtly like give an indication toward other companies. Like maybe UNH was the poster boy for like kind of what you're saying, like, well, are other companies doing practices like this? Maybe the Department of Justice is going like, okay, we're going to pick on one target here. And maybe those other companies that are doing this stuff are going to kind of like pull back and be like, hey, no, we weren't doing anything.
I think, wow, this is, I see valid points in both your discussions. I mean, Centene is just the culprit here. Besides everything that's going on, when you look at stocks, Centene, boy, that big haircut and has not recovered. I'm putting Centene on the bottom. I got Humana. Now look what they've done with Humana since
Yeah.
this whole. So I mean, if they're squeaky clean, maybe that's it. Best in breed now 220.96. I'm gonna put UNH on the bottom here. And just look at the correlations here when a little bit different when Humana bottom, but wow, a lot of strength in Humana. The other ones though, Molina. Molina's been going down as well. You mentioned Elevance Health. So we mentioned Centene. I think the other interesting chart that I want to that seems to be a beneficiary of everything that's going on. CVS. I mean, look at that
Yeah.
CVS
Sure.
chart. That thing has been strong. So
Yeah.
it's a mixed bag in the sector. We know Warren's in. Did Warren have this information, beforehand? When the group made the decision? Well, that's yet to be determined. But a lot going on. It was hit for right now. Right now, the information that we have is they bought the dip. Mitch, any final comments on UNH?
Yeah, just maybe look to see if the gap can hold. If you are in this play, right, you see that daily gap. Everyone sees it. Of course, the low there from Friday was 294.71. Maybe
Really?
you get a slight undercut of that. But other than that, that's the level that it'd be focused on. To just if I'm going to play this, but to me, it's a no touch. Anything DOJ concerns for me has just been my experience. Just stay away. There's other
Hands
opportunities.
off.
All right. Boy, oh boy, what satellite news? I mean,
More
More
satellites.
satellite news.
all of a sudden, we were going to need some help. We got to do something. All of a sudden, this is like the hottest company in the world after doing nothing forever. Brent, news me on this.
So we had a report last night. I forget where the report was coming out of, maybe Bloomberg, that Elon Musk, Starlink, and also T-Mobile were quote eyeing EchoStar Spectrum. And Joel, you were just like, you just said it, but like you're like, why is this happening now? We're getting 2 deals in a row for EchoStar Spectrum. Is there like some like limitation that's coming up on selling the spectrum, and providers are like trying to get in purchases before that limitation? We didn't see that was the case or anything like that. But Mitch, you had a little bit of color on at least why we think Starlink is interested in the spectrum.
Yeah. So when you look into this, and this is really technical aspects, right? So anybody that's in this space will probably know more. So if you know anybody that's big on, let's say, understanding frequency bands, that's who you want to reach out to, because this is what it's mainly about. Of course, so EchoStar Spectrum is special because it has these licenses, right? And these licenses are what everyone's trying to get after. That's why AT&T went after them. But it's all about the optimal frequency band. So EchoStar holds a spectrum of 2 gigahertz band, which is also an AWS-4 band, which is the bands that are being sold to AT&T also. So these frequencies offer excellent balance between capacity and coverage. And really the focus is to do what, right? It's to create a cell phone service for everywhere, right? Not just in, let's say, the major cities, but anywhere in the world, right? And so all these wireless companies are trying to now do this coverage from satellite so that if it's needed, it can switch over. So it has to do with these frequency bands and how their systems are set up. So it's all about coverage. It's all about capacity. And it seems like EchoStar has been holding on to these licenses for a while now, and then now are starting to actually use them. It's been such a focus that they've actually gotten, companies to come after them. The FCC is actually investigating compliance because of the way that they have these licenses. So essentially trying to milk these licenses with other players.
I'm thinking, AT&T, Starlink, and I'm thinking, well, why don't why doesn't someone buy the company? Why does
Yeah.
somebody go after this company, right? If they're that important. But then I look, well, it has a market cap of 14.6 billion, but it has long-term debt of over $25 billion. So no one wants the debt. It's hot. This thing really took off in the after hours trading when we were covering it on
Yeah.
it got this pop right here. It's holding steady. I'm just going to look at the price action from yesterday. I think that's the best determinant you have here. And 55.19, you have stunk over it in the pre-market. That high from yesterday, 55.19, snuck over it in the after hours, but just kind of hanging out here. So, well, actually, this morning you got a print of 56.15, but I'm still going to keep an eye. We're still under yesterday's high. Let's see if we can catch a bid above that and move to higher prices here for
a little
Equifax.
added detail here, which is interesting. Elon Musk actually was the reason that this FCC investigation started, because he was criticized EchoStar for warehousing of spectrum. So essentially, trying to milk it, like I've talked about. And so he's the one that actually got the FCC
That's funny.
investigation started on them. And now he's asking them, like, hey, can you come and give us some access to this license? So it's kind of funny that happened there. Elon Musk, you know how he is. When he starts complaining, people start listening.
All right, real quickly, S&P additions, not the big additions. Elon Corp up $1.25 here, being added to the S&P mid cap, and Sarepta moving on down the line, going into the small cap. This thing snuck over $22, got to $22, I believe, a little over a week ago, but leaking once again. Brent, you want to sneak in how you get to these findings, or should we go to the big news of the day about Cracker Barrel?
Yeah, let's go to Cracker Barrel. The big news of the day, besides the Swift.
Okay, so they're going back to the elderly gentleman with the wagon, right? Trump asked for it. They deliver. The stock got an initial pop off the news up to 62.44. Leaking again. I'll just say a couple things technically and then fundamentally. This just hasn't been a good stock. It hasn't been a good stock since it peaked in late 2018. So the volume's picked up, but looks like they're selling into this. That's one thing. I mean, unless you're on a long road trip and you have absolutely nowhere to eat and you want to sit in a wicker chair on a porch, you go to Cracker Barrel. I don't like their biscuits and gravy. Okay. And I've never ever been able to figure out that
the peg game.
Yeah.
I've never been able to figure it out. Man, Joel, you just said all the funnest things that I love to go to Cracker Barrel for.
Cracker Barrel, go get your biscuits. Get them fast. Breakfast isn't the worst, but I think that's the only time to go to Cracker Barrel.
Look at John with like the logical, practical comment here. Their food is the problem, not the logo. Way to look at what really matters here, John.
Yeah,
I like
how
you're thinking about it.
I don't know, man. All right, let's move out of Cracker Barrel because I'm gonna go get hungry. So let's stop talking food.
No, we got to get to the big event here in Nvidia. And the whole market cap, the whole world, the entire universe is spinning on this report. Mitch, why don't you break down some of the fundamentals for us?
Yeah, let's take a look into NVIDIA's report. Of course, let's take a look here, and I'll show you guys some fundamental data here. So let's pull down the technicals here. Let's pull up here some fundamental data. First thing I want to point to is, of course, what made this run happen, right? Why did this even happen, right? The number one thing that turns companies to like this huge boom, a lot of times is a quick shift in fundamental, right? Because what happens is it catches investors by storm. It catches analysts by storm. Next thing you know, they weren't expecting to see this type of increase, right? And that's why we got that run. It started in July 23. Now we're towards April, right? That's the recent one. Now we'll get the next one, but you can see how it's climbed, and it's been a steady climb, right? This is the data center. And we have other area segments here. The blue area is their gaming revenue. So I know a lot of people tell us, but what's gaming revenue? No, it's not the gaming revenue. That hasn't changed at all here. It's not professional visualization. It's definitely not their automotive revenue. Some people like to talk about Nvidia's like auto, because they're in auto and there's kind of moving towards different vehicles. I know they're in Mercedes and different vehicles like that, but that's not driving the bottom line. It's all about the data centers. So we'll see if this number can continue to beat. That's what you'll be watching in the report. The second major thing to watch in NVIDIA's report is what have we been hearing more and more about? Export controls. That's the number one reason why I wanted to focus on these names, because I thought if export controls could turn, and those were, of course, implemented by a Biden administration. So the Trump jumped in there and used that as the excuse to pull those export restrictions off and now start to help NVIDIA. And what did we get in AMD's recent report? We got a specific number mentioned. About 800 million of revenue was lost that they weren't able to actually gain because they weren't able to sell to China. Now in the green here, you see the China revenue. And you can see here how it's slightly starting to increase, but hasn't taken off, right? Not like the US, that's the blue one. And you can see how that took off. Now I'm looking to see, does the China revenue take off? Not necessarily the US, because if China revenue can take off here and US revenue can just continue either matching or slightly beating, that's how you continue to drive the bottom line here. So if the export controls are going to come off and Trump's going to allow them to sell another chip, I'd be looking to see the China revenue really start to expand, right? And we all know that China wants access to AI. So this is the way they can do it.
All right.
Love that
breakdown.
stuff, Mitch.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Joel and I are going to be excitedly covering Nvidia tonight in the SCN room. We are expecting results around 4:20 p.m. Eastern time. I checked the last 3 or 4 quarters, and Nvidia has reported all their quarters right at 4:20. We're looking for earnings of $1.01. And we're looking for sales around 46.1 billion. All guidance, all importance on the guidance. We'll give you the numbers tonight when the quarter comes out, but we'll be jumping to the guidance as soon as possible to get you that insight. And of course, as you've been highlighting already, Joel, the whole market is looking at this when we get the results tonight. The entire market, all the stocks are going to be moving on the Nvidia report.
Yeah. And watch the earnings call, right? You'll hear comments about China. That's the one thing that I think you focus on here, because that's the one thing that can do what? Shake up the fundamentals, right? Where it was an unexpected gain there. So look for that. I did catch a Morningstar Nvidia equity report. This one came out on August 11th. And some of the things that were stated there are important. Nvidia expected to sell 30 billion in AI chips in China in fiscal 2027. A 15% tax, of course, was written about that they're going to get charged this, right? And that could definitely affect Nvidia's profits here, but that would only be about a 4% hit there on that, right? So if they're going to take a 4% hit from 30 billion, that's still pretty good amount there that they're able to make. Of course, data center revenue, China projected 30 billion in AI purchases would make up about 16% of NVIDIA's total 182 billion expected data center revenue for fiscal 27. And then we're talking more investment outlook for long term here. But prior to export restrictions, China contributed up to 20% of the segment revenue. That could be going back to that 20% if we get those export controls to come off.
Wow, great breakdown there. I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. Just going back to just the last few Nvidia reports, I think it's been a very orderly, trading. You have people that have been willing to sell the rip, and you've had more than enough people willing to buy the dip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some stock in here, not stock in here, or look at the expected move. For people that are new to the show, the straddle price is the adding up the puts in the calls to the nearest strike where the stock closes on that day. So we will have that exact straddle price at 4 o'clock. Based on yesterday's information, it's going to be pretty close to $12. So for all intents and purposes here at 183, you can, on a big rally, a big beat, good news, you can expect buyers to emerge at 195 or sooner. Okay. On the downside, with the 183 close, you could expect buyers to emerge at 171 sooner or later. These are numbers. What you have to look at is when stocks get outside the expected move, then like probably a MongoDB, which we'll go to that in a second. Once they get beyond the expected move, the people that are short to straddles, the option traders, if it gets above it, they got to start buying stock, and you get these big crescendos of the upside. On the other hand, if it breaks down below the expected move on the downside, they got to sell stock that to get back to that delta neutral. So based on those levels, where we close today, look for a 12. What are they going to do? They've been beaten, they've been killing it. Great expectations. Will the party continue? The overall impact on the market, we'll see what happens. Also, look at some of the ETFs and this is in a lot of ETFs and a lot of big components in here. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of detailed effects that happen with, not necessarily trading Nvidia, but trading the other components. Take a look and see if Nvidia is way up. They may hit a stock and another stock in the QQQ based off no news, but just to get that balance up. So 50-day moving average, 168.49. That's what I have for you in Nvidia. I thought nice coverage there. Let us know if you have any questions in the chat. Earnings.
Let's keep it going.
827. Let's get to some earnings, man. And Cloud is back here. We can get to some of these earnings report. Brent, which one rolled off the tape first? Was that Okta? I believe it was Okta that came out first. Okay. TA. And that stock delivered what they want. It got upgraded yesterday too. So kudos to that analyst that upgraded it. 91 versus 84. That's a beat. Sales 728 versus 712. That's a beat. Q3 guidance, well, it's right there. Sales are just a tad better. And then some of your longer term guidance, they bumped some longer term guidance. So beat and a raise from Okta.
Okta. Let's take a look here. I'll just show you a little bit of Okta really quickly. Let's take a quick look here into some fundamental on Okta. The key here is subscription. So this is the subscription revenue here on the blue. And as long as that continues to move, I don't see this Okta kind of turning. You see that they're still being able to also increase while also increasing their margins. That's a huge plus, right? If you're able to do that, that's going to continue making the outlook on this company do great. As you can see, subscribers keep growing. So this company is still finding ways to grow. And until that changes, I think this is still looking good to the upside.
Yeah, a lot of stocks in this sector have recovered. This one, not as much. Things got silly, of course, in 2021.
Yeah.
You had you had a pop and a drop, and then another pop, and then another drop. So, kind of probably staying within the expected move here for Okta. But I said this yesterday, and I'm going to stick with this today. This is not the word. not the world's greatest looking chart here from the dailies. The monthly gives you a different perspective on it, though. Really kind of been churning higher since late 2022, but certainly not with the speed that some of these other stocks in the sector have. But longer term, hey, what's the 50-day moving average going to be here? Is it going to be support, or is it going to be resistance like it has since the end of May? So that's been a steady line for you for 3-4 months. Let's watch how things shake out today, and let's see if you can actually establish a bid above the 50 days. So that's taking a look at Okta. Okta was not the big winner here. The big winner was MongoDB, MDB. We could go into that report here. Nice beat for Q2, $1 versus 66 cents. Beat on sales by 40 million, 591 versus 552. How about guidance? Let's bump guidance a nickel to 8 cents better. 71 prior, 76 to 79. Let's bump up sales, not as much, maybe. They definitely lifted the lower end to above the previous estimate. Guidance, wow, adjusted EPS beat in a raise off MongoDB, and this thing is off to the races.
Yeah, I think this has to do with their product launches. They've had a couple of product launches for AI ecosystem expansion to make it easier to make AI applications. So this one, I think, has to do with not just the fundamentals. Fundamentals are improving on revenue, but it's nothing that I think is like massive on that side. I think it's off there. I hate this whole removing the screen and bringing it back. Sorry about that, guys. But MDB there, you guys can see how the revenue has grown there. The margins are coming down. This is more about a sexy story, I think, with the AI applications. So people are looking at this as more of a story stock, I think, than the fundamentals necessarily driving the boat.
Okay. Steady Eddie was asking for some peers here, and like this whole space is kind of like mingled in together. We have like kind of database security. We have like just outright database like MongoDB or like a box. We also have like data software security, cybersecurity cloud. So when we got the price action at Okta and MongoDB last night, we also started getting price action in Snowflake and CrowdStrike. And these companies aren't very closely tied together, but does the street view them that way? And I think the answer is a definite yes. And so we also have like, you could also use like a Datadog, DDOG. You could also use like a Twilio, TWLO, as like a potential kind of sympathy move for some of these other names. We are going to be getting Snowflake and CrowdStrike tonight. So when Joel and I were covering the Okta and the MongoDB news last night, I was like, oh, dang, this is taking all the fun out of the Snowflake and the CrowdStrike trade, which I know that a few people in the SCN chat were interested in.
Well, we just did a little talk on the expected move. So option writers are getting smoked. The straddle writers are getting smoked on this one. The expected move was $35. This closed at 214. So you go to 250 here. That was the expected move. Right here, full scramble mode for short calls or a long put. You're dead. You can't do anything with them. So this move just kept on going. We are trading, folks. The only thing I could do here is I could give you the pre-market high, and the pre-market high comes in at 282.56, and I could get out my trusty drawing tool here and say, okay, 280. This is where the stock is traded now. Well, let's figure it out, folks. You decide what it's going to do at 280 here. Once again, big move. MongoDB. All right. Well, we got through some of the earnings, so we can get to more of those in a second. But we got a special guest coming on here. Laura Chico, PhD, covering biotechs over there at Wedbush Securities. Good morning, Laura. Laura Chico, covering biotechs over there at Wedbush Securities. And hey, we got some good stuff to talk about, right? Things are perking up. The old performance of the sector looking a little perkier.
Yeah, Joel, I think at the worst point during this year, the MBI was down 13-14% back in April. And since then, it's been can't stop, won't stop. I think on a year-to-date basis, NASDAQ Biotech Index is up 8%. And the big question is kind of coming into the end of the year, where do we go from here? I think the path of least resistance is actually working higher. We could get some help from the macro. I think we could get some help just on regulatory policy, but I'm sure we'll dig into all of this here. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, lower interest rates, right? That's what they're carrying a lot of debt. They need, they need money. They need money to fund the trials. So when we talk about biotechs and the IWM, we say, hey, they need some relief. And if President Trump gets his way, rates are going to be coming down soon and very fast. So a definite positive for the biotech sector. But we all know that the biotech sector moves on the FDA in trials. And they got way behind during a little thing called COVID. They played some catch up, different things going on in the administration here. Let's talk about the FDA bandwidth and how they could be a potential catalyst for this sector.
Yeah, and you know what, Joel, this, like many other government agencies, unfortunately, they've had some headcount reductions. We've been trying to track it specifically to the groups that focus on drug reviews. I think overall, headcount's down about 3% since May across the board at FDA. The groups that are responsible for reviewing drug applications, CDER and CBER, not as bad, but obviously, as you mentioned, after COVID, and there's just a lot going on at the agency. So we have seen an uptick in delays for drug approvals, unfortunately. We're down versus last year. And I think, unfortunately, in 25, we probably end up on a fewer drugs approved this year than last year. But overall, we're still above the average for like the last 10, 15 years, which is a good place to be. And I think now that we kind of have our bearings here on FDA in terms of what resources they do have, I'm even going to hold out a little bit of hope. Maybe we get some folks back in the seats at FDA and kind of accelerate things a little bit. So I think we're through the worst of it. Looking forward, hoping that we can kind of stabilize here going forward.
Yeah, and don't we have like a revolving door with the head of the FDA? He was out, he was in, he was out. Now he's back in again. That
I don't know how many Scaramucci's that is, but there's probably not that many. Yeah, in and out. I think we're through the worst of that as well. And I think at the end of the day, everybody realizes, look, there's a lot of folks that need new therapies. And I think folks are really getting a little bit more focused on getting these things through the review process as quickly as possible. So cautiously optimistic. The September PDUFA calendar, so that's the number of potential approvals, little light in September, but it does pick back up October, November, December. So we've still got room for folks to play some run-ups here in terms of drug approvals.
All right, let's move to some individual issues here and companies that we're going to discuss here. Let's talk about the commercial stage that BRCX is in here, BioCrest Pharma.
Yeah, so this is for a rare disease. The acronym is HAE, but it's hereditary angioedema. And people that have HAE unfortunately suffer from these random swelling attacks. And it can be pretty bad when it's your hand, your arms, your legs, but the more life-threatening ones are when it attacks your throat or your laryngeal area. So BioCrest makes a drug. It's a pill that people take on a regular basis daily to prevent these attacks from happening. And, it's been a really solid commercial uptake story, I think, which has been great. Initially, the therapies in this area are injectable. So BioCrest was the first oral product to market, which has been great. Companies guiding to 580 to 600 million in revenue this year. And our physician survey showed this is actually the only HAE product with projected growth. relative to where it's at. So I do think this is a pretty exciting story. The stock chart hasn't necessarily reflected it this year, but looking forward through the rest of the year here, they also have a pipeline update coming up in the fourth quarter for another rare disease drug. And they recently did a deal that sold European rights for their drug there. But what it did is help them clean up the balance sheet. That deal should close in October. And I think these guys are really looking to make some deals as we go into 26.
So they're not a one-trick pony.
Nope.
Or we're going to find out if they're not a one-trick pony.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is one to watch, we think. On a valuation basis, trading about 2 to 3 times sales. The peer group is more like 5 times. So I really do like the setup here.
What about competition? Who can beat them to the punch? Who is a comparable company? Because sometimes with these smaller companies, if they have a bigger company going against them, pouring more and more money into it at a faster rate, how's that? Is that applicable to BioCrest?
Oh yeah, totally. And the big dog on the block here is Takeda. They have a product, Takhzyro, that's injected to either monthly or every other week. And so we've seen the market kind of evolve a little bit where Takhzyro is doing about $1 billion a year. But like I said, these guys are probably going to do about $600 million in revenue this year. It's been pretty separate. You've got folks that don't really want to take the shots and would prefer a pill. And I think that's what Orladeyo has done, or BioCrest has done a really great job with Orladeyo and getting that in front of people. I think going forward, there are other competitors coming up. But you know what? I think that's going to be 28, 29 when we have to start thinking about that stuff. And for right now, even though there's a few new injectable products on the market, I think that impacts Takeda's drug more than it impacts BioCrest.
And what is the symbol for Takeda?
Oh boy.
Okay, I don't know. Okay, I threw under the bus. Sorry about that.
No. Yeah.
All right, let's move to another company that has a phase 2 readout coming up. You have an outperform rating on it at a price target of $42. I'm going to pull the stock up here. Let's see. Dianthus Therapeutics.
Yeah, so the long-term chart's going to look a little strange because this was a reverse merger. But the focus right now, if you look back at kind of the last 6 months, DNTH, we've got their lead product, DNTH 103, progressing through their first phase 2 study in a neuromuscular disease called myasthenia gravis, or MG. We saw some data yesterday from Regeneron. We're looking for this proof of concept readout from Dianthus to pop up in September here. So I think, the bottom line here, Ultomiris from AstraZeneca is on the market today doing a couple $2 billion. And myasthenia gravis is a big driver for growth for these guys. I think Dianthus can put up a product that has the efficacy of Ultomiris, but Dianthus's product is administered every other week at home rather than an IV infusion. So if you also have a benefit on safety, I think this is definitely something that folks will be interested in.
How much could this add to potential revenue?
If you look back at Raw Pharmaceuticals, they were later acquired, but I think Raw saw about 150 million step up in valuation when that came out for their phase 2 data. I'd expect something similar. And the nice thing about Dianthus is we have a couple readouts coming up next year too. So this kind of starts a string of readouts for the company all around that 103 product.
Okay, and those are coming out over the next year or so. So we'll be getting some more information on that. Are we one trick pony here with DNTH?
More of like we call it a pipeline and a product, Joel. So, we've seen this with other autoimmune disease drugs where once you find one spot it works in, it might have applications to other areas too. And that's what we've seen with Ultomiris. We've seen that from Argenx with Vyvgart. So like the opportunity for these guys to play in a couple different sandboxes.
Okay, let's move on to the next stock here. And it's in a big area. It's a small cap, right? Yep. And it's in an area that's really been in the news. And I don't know, can you make any comments about Sarepta at all? Since we're going to, if not, I totally understand. A small cap play with interesting profile in epilepsy. That would be OVID. That would be Ovid Therapeutics. Oh, this is a small cap.
This is definitely a small cap. Yeah.
Oh, I usually don't even put stocks under $5 on here, and this is $1.02. But just looking at the chart, it seems like Sarepta's pain has been their gain. Talk to us about Ovid Therapeutics.
Yeah, and this one is a little bit more speculative, as you pointed out here, but it's been on a tear the last couple of months, coming up off the lows of like 50 cents below there. What's coming up for Ovid is a phase 1 readout, and their lead molecule is OV329. This has been designed to kind of improve upon an approved drug already. This drug, vigabatrin, is on the market for seizures. Unfortunately, it has a side effect of retinal toxicity, so it can cause vision loss. Not a great idea, but it does control seizures. So the idea with 329 is keep the efficacy of vigabatrin, but get rid of that retinal toxicity. And we're going to have our first look at clinical data in September with this molecule. The preclinical data does suggest it works well. And we've seen other epilepsy companies like Xenon, XENE, Praxis, PRAX really take off when there's this demonstration of activity in humans. So I think it is just a phase 1 study in healthy volunteers, and it's not going to give us seizure data, but it will tell us, is this getting into the brain and is it active? And I think if we see that this thing should be trading at more of like $150 million valuation relative to where it's at right now.
All right. And, the downside risk obviously here is what you pay for it at $1.20. Do you want to bring in the Sarepta into this at all, or do you want we can pass on that? We can move on to some other issues because just based on the price action, it seems like Sarepta's pain has been their gain.
Yeah, and I'll just mention this about Sarepta, so we don't formally cover it, but SRPT. But what I would say is there is a company that we do cover, which is Solid, SLDB, SL Dog Boy. And I think that has been a more direct benefit of the Sarepta controversy, I guess I'll call it. And, Solid is working on a next-gen gene therapy product in Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And one thing that they recently disclosed on their earnings update was that they've really pulled forward their recruitment in this gene therapy trial. So as it's gotten more convoluted around Sarepta, you've seen people like Solid here really kind of benefit by recruiting more and more patients. And I think one of the nice things about the Solid gene therapy, the safety profile so far seems to be a lot cleaner, but also this immune suppression regimen. So when these people take the gene therapy, they also have to take other medicines to dampen down their immune system. With Solid, they're just getting prednisone, which is what the Duchenne kids get anyway. So it's a much easier regimen to take. So I think at the end of this year, we're going to get a regulatory update from Solid in terms of what they need to do to file for approval. But they should have 30 kids dosed by the end of first quarter. And I think that's about what REGENXBIO already has for their pivotal studies. So even though it's a phase 1 study, I think Solid actually moves a lot faster than people think, and gives kind of Sarepta a run for their money there.
All right. 2 stocks that popped up in the chat. And I don't know, you can just say pass. Or if you could talk about a related stock, Moderna.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pass.
This is just getting tougher and tougher with respect to kind of vaccines. And I think it's been a tough go. It's really disappointing to see the comps kind of trail off for those guys.
Okay.
That chart looks pretty rough there.
Okay.
But I'll hold off on that one, I think.
Okay. All right. And then another one, and CRSP. I believe this is a Kathy stock. Kathy Wood, I believe, likes this stock. I'll pull them back off 70. Any comments or stocks that are related to CRISPR Therapeutics?
I think this has been another area where it's a little challenging in terms of finding the right use cases and actually kind of advancing it in a quick efficient manner. When we think about like gene editing and things like that, you definitely need to have the right disease setting where it makes sense. For example, HAE, where we talked about BioCRISP before, there's some folks going after gene therapy, gene editing. Intellia is one, NTLA, kind of related to CRISPR. But you have all these other products that are on the market right now in terms of antibodies. Folks can take a shot, they can take a pill. And I think that's an area where it just does not make sense given the risk with some of these other advanced therapies. Now, there are disease settings where it makes sense, but I think you got to make sure you're picking the right indication.
All right. Someone snuck in Voyager Therapeutics, VYGR. You're welcome to take a pass on it or talk about related stocks.
I think this is one we did cover previously, and now one of our analysts here at Wedbush has taken it over, Yun Zhang. What I would say about Voyager is they do have an excellent management team there in place, and definitely watching their Alzheimer's disease program to see what comes out there in the coming months. I think it'll be exciting. Al Samrock is the CEO and obviously had a long tenure at Biogen, so certainly wouldn't sleep on this one for long term.
Okay, Laura Chico, PhD, Managing Director, Wedbush Securities, covering the always difficult sector, biotechnology. Thanks a lot, Laura. We always appreciate having you on. We'll dial you up next quarter. We got to get you on before the end of the year to see.
Absolutely, Joel. Always great to be here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Laura Chica, joining us here on Pre-Market Prep. Little sell-off, Brent. What happened? We went from 64.85 to 64.80.
A little bit of a sell-off. We had the Fed's Williams, one of the board members, commenting. You typed to me, Joel, India tariffs. Did you see something on India tariffs?
I got a little pop-up that said something about India tariffs and India tariff news. 50% on into force as President Trump puts pressure. I thought he was being buddy with this guy, but let's see if the market is immune to this. Matthews India Active ETF. This looks like it's trade by appointment. Oh, this is less than trade by appointment only. I'm not even going to discuss this stock, but more tariff.
What about INDA?
Oh, you coming up? INDA.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if the volume is any. Oh, that's India. I don't know if the volume is any better in that one, but just
good call. Good call, Brewster. Yeah, that traded 6.6 million yesterday. And pull back. Just respect the 50-day there. 54.02 is the 50-day. As President Trump gets tough on India, we'll see. I mean, it could be nice, it could be mean. Zelensky, he's gone, he's out, he yells him, he's back. Who knows where? Right?
I mean, right. Yeah, right, for sure. We got a couple more earnings reports. I don't think we touched on any earnings reports from this morning, so we'll just touch on those real quick, and then we'll have a couple minutes, hopefully, for some rating changes. Kohl's results were out this morning. Company reporting 56 cents. Sales 3.55 billion versus 3.3 billion estimate. They did have some pretty solid fiscal year 25 guidance. They're expecting earnings 50 to 80 cents. Analysts were down at around 45 cents, and then they actually raised their fiscal year sales guidance. Shares of Kohl's here this morning, Joel, I see on your chart, trading up more than a couple bucks on this report.
Yeah. And why don't you just throw in the news that we were covering in the STN after hours? Because I can't. Was it Steady Eddie or was it Ted? Someone bought the dip in that. I don't know how long they held it, but
might have been Ted. Yeah,
was it
good
Ted?
call. So maybe that might be a good call. So we had a Bloomberg report just before. If you zoom your chart a little bit out, you can totally see it in the chart where we had a dip just before the close. Bloomberg report that the company is asking for more time to pay vendors during their turnaround effort. Algos reacted to it and initially traded it down a good $1.50, maybe a little bit more. And that's when I think it was Ted or maybe Eddie that were like, I bought the dip. And I was like, what's your thesis here? And he was just like, I just bought the dip. I was like, okay, awesome. Good call. And then, of course we had the earnings report today. And Joel, what you were highlighting is, if you would have bought that dip even under $13, the stock traded as low as $12.16 on that Bloomberg report for last night. Even if you would have bought the stock up by $12.90 or $13, you would have a big winner here this morning on the earnings report.
Yeah, you're right. They're right. That was during before the close, right? It wasn't
right,
after.
right before.
Yeah, right before the close. And I think our initial reaction was, well, they're asking for more time. I mean, that's big difference than saying, we can't.
We can't make the payments.
Yeah.
I think it was a good point that you were making for sure. Yeah.
Wow. It's back. Coles is back here. Up 254. The pre-market high comes in at 16.11. You're 60 cents off that. Folks, once again, I hate to do this to you, but you had the stock go absolutely parabolic. Got all the way to 21.39. Had a 2-for-1 stock split, comes down to 10.33. Did it fill the gap? You gap people are so sneaky. Look at the high here was 10.42, right? It came back down to 10.33 and filled the gap. Hung out for a couple days, and now we're back at 16. I guess, it's tough to figure out a retracement, but what I'll do is just because, to make it easy, that was about 11-point move. Boy, 5.5, that takes it back right to this area. We're multiple highs at 14. So if you're looking for a dip, even yesterday's high came in with here. But see what they can do. First things first, if you're holding out for more, you want to see this get up to that pre-market high, be bet at $16. Good volume being traded in Kohl's. I'm not sure. Macy's. Do we ever talk about Macy's? Macy's up 47
we haven't talked
cents.
about Macy's in a while.
All that great real estate that they have. But Macy's is getting a little pop. Target, how that doing? Got hit after earnings and can't exactly say that earnings day low is in here for Target.
We also had Abercrombie this morning, ANF, reverse, an opposite response here in ANF. We had a beat from the company reporting 232 versus 230 estimate, only a 2-cent beat there, pretty mild. Company with quarterly sales 1.21 billion. Analysts were at around 1.2 billion. So right in line there. Guidance did look rather solid, though. They did raise the range just a little bit for their GAAP earnings guidance. And their Q3 guidance, they're expecting 205 to 225. They're expecting sales 1.27 to 1.29 billion. That looks a little better than expected versus the 1.26 billion estimate. So despite a kind of inline quarter and okay guidance, shares are moving lower here this morning, trading down about $10 or so.
Wow, this is a tricky one. I'm not sure what the expected move was, but got all the way up to 112 even. And then you got that was at 7:45 this morning, and then you pulled a rug pull of rug pulls here, trading down not too far off the pre-market low 90.81. So, I mean, hard to sell it in the hole here. If you're looking to buy it, maybe not today or moving in the future, a little bit moving forward. Let's keep an eye. 50-day moving average. Spent very little time below the 50-day moving average, going all the way back to June. Touched it last week, and now it's revisiting it. So whatever the report was, whatever the up and downs were, let's see if it can hold that 50-day moving average, which is just above the pre-market low.
Joel, you wanna cram in a couple rating changes here, or maybe
Let's do it real quick.
Or should we save them for STN?
Well, you know what? Why don't we save them for the STN room?
Okay.
Why don't we move over there? Why don't we get over there? We'll cover some imbalances, cover some open, get a look at the Nvidia price action. Tomorrow, Meet Schneider. Meet Schneider is going to be joining us here on pre-market prep, and give her in Meet minute, but we get her for 15 minutes, folks. Thanks for joining. Thanks to Money Mitch for filling in for Triple D, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.